Hello, it's John Virgo here. This is a request for Snooker Loopy, which was a matchroom thing with Steve Davis and Dennis Taylor and Willie Thorne. Not my song. Mine was from Big Break. It's only a game. But you've asked me to do it, so I'll do it. It's Snooker Loopy, not so we. Me and him and them and me. Great lines. We'll show you what to do with a load of balls and a snooker cue. Pot the reds and screw back for the yellow, green, brown, blue, pink or black. Snooker Loopy, nuts are we. We're all snooker loopy. A well done to Chaz and Dave. Where's the cue ball going? Cheers.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of the Snooker Loopy Podcast Crucible Chats, where me and Joe, we have a chat about the daily action at the Crucible and discuss our thoughts, our feelings, the surprises, the highs, the lows. But who is Joe? Oh, I mentioned him, but has he got an interesting nickname? You bloody bet he does, because this is my very, very good friend, the eagle-eyed Joe Hannard!
Good evening, Hazel. Good evening, everybody at home. Welcome back to some more Crucible chats on my screen there, Tom, and therefore on the audience's screen as well. You were just, doing a Usain Bolt. It just sort of froze.
It froze for me as well in the middle of your "Good evening, Hazel."
Good evening, Hazel.
So hopefully the recording will be all right watching that.
The recording will be fine. But welcome back to our Crucible Daily Roundups. It is day 2 and our second podcast of the day, Tom, because we got up at the crack of dawn this morning to record our day 1 thoughts. We're right up at the end of day 2 after watching, 2 very dramatic matches at the end of it, which we will get to. But yeah, I mean, what an Easter treat we have had with all of the snooker so far this weekend, and hopefully more to come over the next few days as well.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, just a quick point about that nickname, Eagle-Eyed. That's a brand new one, I think, for this year, where Rob Walker introduces Barry Hawkins as Eagle-Eyed. Even though he's a hawk. Does that make sense to say eagle-eyed if he's a hawk? I'm not too sure about it as a phrase.
Maybe Hawkeye is trademarked, so he can't say the hawk-eyed Barry Hawkins. But, there you go. Little tidbit of information there from you, Tom. And not a nickname we'll be hearing again this tournament, unfortunately. But we'll get to that in a bit.
Just this tournament, because otherwise it sounded like Barry Hawkins had passed away. That was heartbreaking.
He might, yeah.
No, he won't have. Because of his eagle eyes, he won't ever get into trouble.
But yeah, of course, we started the morning with the second half of the Zhao Gudong Matthew Selt match. Obviously, Gudong starting 7-2 up, and we had that highly anticipated Jack Jones, last year's runner-up, versus Zhao Xingtong. I don't know how much of that did you watch, Tom?
I pretty much watched most of the Xingtong match. I wasn't that bothered by the Matt Selt match because it felt like a foregone conclusion. Which I know there's been 3 matches so far that have felt like that, and 2 of them weren't. So this was the only one so far which kind of has turned out to be a foregone conclusion.
Although Matt Selt did win the opening 2 frames, didn't he? So he threatened to make a bit of a comeback, and I talked about that last frame yesterday where he had a few chances to make it 6-3, and it just shows how important that last frame of the session is, because if he made it 6-3 yesterday, first 2 frames today, 6-5, completely different game, but as it happens, it was still 7-4 and an uphill battle.
Yeah, I don't really think Zhao would ever be too worried at that point in the match. Obviously, when Selt had won 2, you would start to go, hold on. But he never got it as close as some of the other matches have gone, which is not the case, of course, with Xingtong against Jack Jones, where Xingtong has he's looked like a player as he has done, since the UK Championship that he won a couple of years ago. He's a real player who really, I think, will probably put a fear into anyone he faces.
Absolutely, and he continued that form, didn't he, of the qualifiers, and as you say, I think he's gunning for some records with the amount of centuries he's going for, and he's a great player to watch. I think what we ultimately have to do is move on from whatever's happened in the past, and just sort of accept that this guy's going to be around to stay. And is he going to be the first Chinese world champion?
I'd say he's got a good chance this year, definitely, because he's absolutely flying. So I wouldn't be surprised to, at the very least, see him. I reckon it'd be a surprise if he's not at least in the semis, to be honest, because he's playing so well. I mean, we should say also that he's got loads of centuries in qualifying, and he's got more in his match so far against Jack Jones. But also Hossein Vafai had 5 centuries on Judgment Day, and then in his match against Barry Hawkins, I think he got another 5. So he's also absolutely belting into centuries.
Yeah, I mean, I did say Hossein Vafai, Barry Hawkins could be a sort of dark horse for the match of the round, and I think it sort of transpired that way. Barry Hawkins playing really, really well, led the whole way actually until 9-all, and lost the deciding frame against Hossein, and there was a bit of a controversial moment. I don't know if you know about this, Tom, but when he was on 50, Hossein Vafai, still 75 on the table, he actually shouted out and screamed, "Come on," or whatever, as if he was already over the line, which, it's a bit controversial anyway, even when a player's has scored enough to win, to do it that early on in the frame. That's it's not going to help his reputation very much, is it?
You see, I didn't see it because I was following the Robertson WAKELIN match. So all I know of it is I was watching WAKELIN Robertson, and I heard someone
exactly the same.
The other side of the Crucible just go, and then there was no audience reaction. So I was like, has someone just fallen over?
Yeah. Well, no. Funnily enough, I heard the exact same thing. I was watching it live on BBC 4, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to get me phone up here, and obviously there's a bit of a delay to the iPlayer stream. So I opened it up, and I could see he was on 49. He pots a fairly straightforward red, gets on the blue, and he's screaming, and I'm thinking, what's he screaming about? But I think Seema talked about it a little bit after the match, after they'd spoken to Chris WAKELIN and Neil Robertson. But it'll be interesting to see, what people's reaction is to that. I think the vast majority of people were probably watching the other match because of how dramatic that was, so it could be something that sort of comes out overnight as people catch up on the action with Hossein. But an absolutely crazy day of snooker, Tom. And I'm just getting the drawer open now. I mean, we haven't even spoken about Mark Williams yet.
Do you know what? Yeah, I was just thinking it, and I was just thought we should say to the listeners and the viewers that we've started the podcast being all over the place, in that we've kind of gone, what about this match? What about that match? What about that match? I think it's because literally the matches have finished 20 minutes ago, and as fans, we've got all the adrenaline going through us, so we're so excited. Yeah. And there was so much good snooker and exciting stuff that we're turning into a bit of Rob Walker. We're a bit like, oh my God, this has been a brutal day. Brutal. Absolutely brutal.
But let's just have a couple of words about Zhao Gudong. We'll start off the day again. We'll be sensible. Zhao Gudong, of course, going through very comfortably, 10-4. Very good to see. And I think actually Zhao Gudong, he's got Joe Connor or John Higgins next. I think he's got a decent chance against either of those, to be honest, to get to the quarterfinals. And well, who knows? I mean, again, he's been a perennial sort of quarter semi-finalist throughout lots of tournaments this season. It could be, again, a last 4 appearance for Zhao Guodong, depending on how he gets on against some of the other players. It's really opening up, this World Championship.
Do you know what? Because I was thinking about Zhao Guodong, you have to say, because there's 2 Zhaos.
Too many Zhaos.
No, right, don't say that too often. You get in trouble, mate. But I was thinking about Zhao
because it sort of sounds like Joe. So it's like insulting a fellow Joe, in my opinion.
Yes, of course, yes, and you can say that as a big fan of ex-snooker player Zhao Johnson and Zhao Perry.
And particularly Zhao Swale.
Yeah. And that's why he was outlawed.
And at the moment, Zhao O'Connor. But yeah.
Yeah. But interesting about Zhao Guodong is that, because I said yesterday, I've always thought of him as a very decent player who should be around the top 16, but never quite got there. So I was looking through his page on Wikipedia, and I think
As
the
you
reason
do.
I spent far too long on Jesus Christ. But
where do we think the Lincolnshire sausage came from? This was from Tom rooting through
me.
random players.
It
wasn't you. Oh my God.
I wasn't rooting tooting. I'm not the outlaw. But I was looking through it, and I think the reason I've always thought he was a decent player is because most seasons, for about 10 years, he gets to like at least one quarterfinal. So he's not someone who's ever been consistent, but he pops up in a quarterfinal here or a last. So he's always got that talent. Whereas this is the first ever time where he's been consistent for a whole season. He's got his first ranking title, finalist in the Champion of Champions, and as strange as it might be for people who don't follow snooker for a whole season, he's one of the real informed players of this year.
He is.
So, as you say, I don't think he would necessarily fear Joe O'Connor or John Higgins, because he's going to probably believe, based on form, he's got every chance of having a deep run.
And to be fair, I think he's played John Higgins quite a lot this season because of the way the seedings work. You tend to find that you play similar players throughout the season. So, as you say, I don't think he'll be fearful of that. He's had a very comfortable first round, which it's looking like the seeds are going to have their work cut out this year, and we knew that going in. There was a lot of big matches. I think there was a lot of talk that the draw was underwhelming, but as we said in our preview, there was so many matchups that I think were favouring the qualifier. But all the best to Zhao Guodong, and one to watch for the rest of the tournament, definitely. But don't listen to me. All of my predictions have pretty much been wrong so far. So yeah. Other than Zhao Xintong, it's all going wrong, to be honest with you. But speaking of which, 7-2, you said, you watched him. He was playing really, really well. Do you think that Jack Jones can forge a comeback tomorrow?
He's not a player you can write off, because he was written off a lot of times in the championship last year. But I don't think there was ever a time where he was that. Apart from actually the final, where he was that far behind. I think he
was 8-0 down, doesn't he? Did he lose the first session 8-0, I think?
Yeah, it was definitely something like that. So apart from 7-1, the final,
yeah.
I don't think there was ever a match where he had to really bring it back. But I just think, who knows after the past 2 days, because everyone would have thought Kyron... It's kind of the thing where, on paper, you'd think Xintong is clearly going to walk it, but everyone would have thought that about Kyron against Lei Pei Fan. They would have thought it about WAKELIN against Robertson. So we've already seen twice where people had heavy first session leads, and the player who you thought was out of it has managed to sort of drag their way back in it. But that's not going to happen every time, statistically. You're a maths teacher. You'll know statistically that's not likely. Is it likely now, Joe?
Well, it's only ever happened 3 times in Crucible history for a player to come from 7-2 down in the first round to win it. It happened in 2017, I think. Marco Fu came back from 7-2 down against Luca Bressel to win 10-9. I know Cliff Thorburn was 7-2 up against Nigel Bond one year, and Nigel Bond managed to win that 10-9. I think that was 1994. The other occasion, sort of slips my mind. I think there was a match where a player we shouldn't really be talking about, but 2006 world champion was playing against Stuart Bingham, I think. Bingham was 7-2 up, and I think it went 9-all, and then Bingham won the decider. I seem to remember that. So it does happen. Jack Jones isn't necessarily a name you would think is capable of doing that against a Zhao Xintong in the sort of form he's in. You know, Neil Robertson, as much as it was 7-2 from yesterday, I don't think he played that badly yesterday. I think Chris WAKELIN had a lot of the run of the ball. It could have easily been 6-3, 5-4. So I wasn't that surprised Neil Robertson was able to come back, if you like. But I would be shocked if Jack Jones pulled it off. But stranger things have happened.
I do think the massive psychological difference is the fact that Xintong's not going to have anywhere near as much pressure on him. You have the personal pressure of wanting to perform and win, but he's not going to be thinking, oh, I need to battle against the Crucible curse, or he's not going to be worried about ranking points. Like, I genuinely think he'll take this World Championship as a free hit. So he's going to be so chill and so kind of, like when you're qualified generally, but even more so, he's just going to be so, right, it's great to be here, let's see what I can do. And whereas Jack Jones, I mean, he'll know, if he loses this, he's going to be worried about his top 16 place come the Masters in January, because
well, absolutely. I don't even think he did qualify for the Masters this year. I don't think he did. I think it was I think he was number 17 or something, wasn't he? Am I wrong about that?
He was definitely on the cusp, and he was only just qualified the Crucible.
Yeah, I mean, he's already set to drop to number 20. Regardless of what happens in that match. If he loses that, that's where he's going to end up. So he'd have to win, and he'd have to probably get to at least the quarterfinals to keep his place in the top 16, which is a tough ask, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because the points he's got dropping off are from the quarterfinal 2 years ago against C. So he's losing a lot of money, and C will also probably be looking to have a good run because he's going to be losing a semi-final.
Well, yeah. I mean, as you say, C Xiaowei, he's currently number 15 out on the end of season list. So it's an interesting one. There's a few players that are sort of on the cusp that could sneak in. Chris WAKELIN tonight, his victory is bumped him up to 16 currently, so he'll be delighted about that. But one to keep an eye on tomorrow, I think, that Zhao match. Obviously, we briefly spoke about Mark Williams before. Incredible performance, really. Wu Yize wasn't exactly blowing Mark Williams away, but somehow found himself 8-7 ahead. And you thought, well, maybe the eyesight thing is getting to Mark Williams, and I think he is in his own head about it a lot. I'm not saying he hasn't got these issues; he absolutely has, but I think he's so defeatist about it. He's not sort of standing up to it and being confident and saying, you know what, I can still win. And I think that's been a lot of the problem, actually, over the last couple of days in that match. And maybe, Wu Yize didn't really play that well, other than the 466 unanswered points. Other than that, it was very much bits and pieces. Mark Williams, at his best, would have won that match easily.
The fascinating thing about Mark Williams, of course, 50 years old, into the last 16 at the Crucible once again. And a lot of people, when they talk about the longevity of Ronnie or John Higgins, they mention, Ronnie looks after himself. He goes running and he does stuff in terms of his fitness. Or John Higgins and he's spinning around and all that stuff. But Mark Williams...
Kylie Minogue.
Yeah, Higgins puts on Kylie, has a great time. Please don't sue me, Higgins. Is that libelous? I don't know.
I think there's a lot worse you could say about John Higgins. I think he'll take that.
But Williams, he probably celebrates with a kebab with Jackson Page. Do you know what I mean? It feels like a
plays
real
golf seven times a week. You know, it's it's a crazy one with Mark Williams, isn't it? I think he's probably the most secretive practicer. You know, he still works hard, but it always has been about his temperament. He genuinely doesn't care if he wins or loses, and I think that has always been his best quality. And actually, you know, you mentioned he's 50 years old. He's the oldest winner at the Crucible since Steve Davis in 2010. So there you go. There's a little stat for you.
Well, interestingly, then because he should have enough points this year that he's guaranteed to be at the Crucible next year in the top 16. So how old does he have to beat Steve? Was Steve 52?
I think Steve was 52. Obviously, he got to the quarter-final that year. So
Mark will be there at 51. So
yeah. But, you know, realistically, the class of 92, one of them at the very least is going to be still around in 3, 4, 5 years, you would imagine. Whether that's Ronnie, whether that's Mark, whether that's John Higgins, they're going to have these one-off tournaments that they just blitz the opposition and win it, or get to the semi-finals at the Worlds, and that's what keeps them in the top 16. But you know, Mark Williams is through to the next round. I don't think many people fancied him. People that have watched him recently, I think, weren't fancying him. People that had seen him earlier in the season are saying, "Oh, don't count out Mark Williams. He's going to end up, having a very good run," and he may well do yet. But he'll be quite happy as well about the result tonight. You know, Hossein Vafai going through against Barry Hawkins. I think that's winnable for Mark Williams.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those where once you saw the draw, I think a lot of us did worry for Mark. You know, as fans of the class of 92, you kind of went, oh, is he going to struggle? Is he going to manage to scrape through? But he, as you say, Hossein Vafai, very hot and cold player. Very hot and cold as a player. Some days looks like a world beater, but then you're like, a bit like Jack Gazowski. On his day, you go, this guy's incredible. But then you go, right, so why are you dipping in and out of the top 16 then? Because on your day, you should be in there all the time and you should be winning ranking titles. But it's not quite clicked for either of them just yet.
And it's over the best of 25 as well. You know, that's a tough old 3-session match. But good news is Mark Williams will be one of the players that I see on Friday morning now. So very happy about that. I will also be seeing a certain Strictly Chris WAKELIN. Which I wasn't expecting, to be honest.
He should come out to the Strictly theme song. He really should.
He absolutely should do. But yeah, I mean, what a match. You know, I was watching from fairly early on, I watched the F1 before it, and I think Neil had already won the first frame when I tuned in, and, you know, Neil won all 4 before the mid-session interval, and Chris WAKELIN was absolutely nowhere. I think I messaged you at that point and said, I think Robbo's going to walk it now. You know, Chris WAKELIN had a high break of 22 before the mid-session interval.
It is incredible how similar it was to the Kyron match just the day before. In that a player who you felt was strong favourite going into the second session and then just didn't turn up for 4 or 5 frames, and you just went, wait, what? What's It made no sense. And again, it wasn't even like, as you said, Robertson was blowing him off the park. Robertson was playing decent, but really it just felt like WAKELIN was missing every easy pot that came his way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there was a couple in a row that he missed by miles. You know, he missed one over the pocket by a mile. It just felt very much like it was going to be Robertson's, and I think that ultimately proves Robertson isn't actually back to his very best. You know, lots of people have said he is, but Robertson at his peak wins that match comfortably before it even gets to the stage where he was 7-2 down. You know, ultimately that's where the damage was done. But Robertson wasn't exactly convincing in many ways. I think he had one century in the evening session, but you know, he was needing 2 or 3 chances. He was getting a lot of help by Chris WAKELIN ultimately, but you always do need a little bit of help from your opponent. But once it got to 7-all, you felt like Robertson was going to kick on. Chris WAKELIN got in with a nice break, I think of 62 or something like that, and that really settled him down again. But that last frame, Tom, I mean, oh my word.
Can you catch your breath?
Can you get your breath? I mean, there was that shot and where the red and black were stuck together, and the red was over the corner pocket, and Neil Robertson couldn't see the red over the pocket, and it seemed like a simple swerve, really, to go and pot that, but he thought, no, I'm going to play the cannon off the red and black and, cannon the white into the red over the pocket, and that's exactly what he did. And then the cue ball followed it in after, and you just thought, wow, what a moment. And I think Chris WAKELIN got down and potted the red, but didn't get on a colour, and it was just back and forth all the time. It was ridiculous. And at one point, Chris WAKELIN made a mistake in potting the black, and didn't realise it would go back on its spot, and you visibly saw his hand shake.
Yeah, you literally saw him. His hand was really shaky, and you just saw how nervous he must have been. As a player who's never won at a Crucible before, as a player, we shouldn't forget that, you know, it's the thing about someone like a Selby or a Class of 92 or Ronnie, that if they one year get to the semi-final, the next year to go out in the last 16, in terms of their ranking, it doesn't make a massive difference because they tend to be so high up generally. But someone like Chris WAKELIN, like, you would be thinking, God, it's an extra 10 grand if I win this. And
yeah.
I think for someone who's only just really got into the top 16, it still is serious money for people like that, because it is still, they're not used to, you know, getting £1 million a year and getting sponsorship deals, and he's still sponsored by Hot Tubs of London.
Well, exactly, you know, and we know all about the Hot Tubs of London, don't we? But yeah, I mean, fair play to Chris WAKELIN. You know, he got over the line in the end. You could say Neil Robertson bottled it a little bit in the end, and I think that would be fair enough as well. It would have been nice if it went to a decider, but I think we're both very happy to see Chris WAKELIN through. You know, he's a nice guy, and he does deserve a victory at the Crucible. A bit of a shame for Neil Robertson, because he's had such a good season to get back to form and get back to being at the Crucible after missing last year. I think it would have been nice to actually see Neil Robertson have a really good run, because he's really struggled at the Crucible for years and years now. And that you know, struggle goes on, I guess, for Neil Robertson, but he'll be back. There's no guarantee Chris WAKELIN will be, so, you know, we've got to enjoy it while it lasts, I suppose, his little purple patch.
Well, I guess the kind of, you know, the unlucky thing for Neil is that, as you said, in the current end of season rankings, Chris WAKELIN is 16, so it was pretty close, really, to drawing a fellow top 16 player. Do you know what I mean? In terms of,
it was one of the toughest draws, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I'm glad that Neil put up a fight, really, and made it interesting, but it was nice. It's always nice to see someone get their first win at the Crucible.
Oh,
you can
absolutely.
See it means them. You can see how emotional they are. And
you never know. I mean, this happened to Luca Brissell a couple of years ago. Chris WAKELIN might go all the way. And I think you did back him to go pretty far, didn't you? So we'll see.
No, I think I backed Kyron to beat him, so I'm gonna fall down on that. But you know.
Well, yeah, aren't we all? But yeah, one other match that we hadn't mentioned, and that was Mark Allen versus Fan Zhengyi. And Fan went 3-0 up very, very quickly against Mark Allen this afternoon. So, you know, fair play to Mark Allen for getting back to 5-4. But that, again, looks like a match that could go very, very close. As have all of the matches so far, other than the Zhao Gudong match, and potentially the Xing Tong match, depending on how that goes tomorrow. But yeah, speaking of tomorrow, Tom, Kicking us off at 10 o'clock, we've got John Higgins versus Joe O'Connor. Their first session, they will be playing to a finish at 7 o'clock as well. So nice for them to get it out of the way. We've got Jack Jones versus Zhao Xintong again at 10 o'clock, playing to a finish. Ding Junhui gets his campaign underway against Zach Surety, Crucible debutant there at 2:30. Mark Allen and Fan Zhengyi on the other table. Now, little bit of a shout. If that match goes close, they might get dragged off and have to come back after the evening session, which would be very interesting if that happens.
I could see that happening if Mark Allen gets stuck in some of the way his tactical play that he's been a bit known for the past 2 years. That could happen.
Absolutely. And then in the evening session, we've got Si Jiahui against Dave Gilbert. That's going to be a good match. That's getting underway. And then John Higgins versus Joe O'Connor will be playing their match to a conclusion. So any highlights for you tomorrow, Tom?
Looking forward to Ding versus Zach. I've kind of backed Zach to do quite well. Mm-hmm. I think he's looked very good in qualifying. It's always nice to see a debutant. But to be honest, I do like Ding as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those where I will be rooting for Zach, and if it goes close, I will be wanting him to win, a bit like Chris WAKELIN tonight. But at the same time, it's always good to see Ding do well. He's always someone, when he's playing well, he's so fluid, he's so just good around the table. And so it'll just be a good match where hopefully... also, I don't know if they've ever played, and that's always something interesting, where you're like, I've no real idea how this will go because I don't know if you two even know each other.
Yeah. Well, I think it's always good for snooker if Ding's playing well. He's a very popular character, and it'll be interesting to see how he gets on, and obviously to see how Zach gets on as a Crucible debutant. But exciting day tomorrow coming up. But
what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the Higgins O'Connor match. I think that one could be quite close. I think there'll be a lot of big breaks in that one. I'm looking forward to seeing Si Jiahui as well. He's had a couple of decent years at the Crucible, so we'll see how he gets on against Dave Gilbert. Obviously, a bit of a Crucible specialist. Again, I think there could be a lot of big breaks in that one. C's not had the best of times recently. And Dave Gilbert's sharp after qualifying, so again could be a bit of a shock on the cards. But yeah, should be a good day tomorrow, bank holiday Monday, for everybody, or today as people are watching this. Before we get into our regular segment, Tom, we've got a bit of Fan Zhengyi email to get through. And it's just one today, and it's a special one, Tom, because it's our good friend Fionn Lynch that has got in touch, and we do love a bit of Fionn, of course. Fionn lost a bet with us and ended up having to watch multiple hours of Dominic Dale singing, and it was his fault. Let's be honest, he decided to do that. He has free will. He didn't have to do that. But he did. So he says anyway, "Hey boys, how are you? It's Fionn here. The Fionn that listened to Dominic Dale singing for hours on end."
As if we'd go, which Fionn? We hear from so many of them.
Well, exactly. You might not have recognised me by my email address, which is cuethechat@gmail.com. That's because I also do a snooker podcast, and I was wondering if after the World Championship, if one or both of you would be up for coming on my podcast and doing a season roundup. Well,
a rival podcast?
A rival podcast. Well, as long as he doesn't do any cue the music or cue the laughter, I think we can squeeze that in, Tom.
Yeah, I think we can do something. I mean, I don't know whether it would be that interesting to do a season roundup when it would be pretty much the same as what we do on this podcast. I don't know whether he'd rather do something in the summer that's a bit less related to it, because otherwise I think we'd say very similar things on his podcast as we would on our podcast.
No, it's a good point. So have a ponder on that, Fionn, and but we'd definitely be up for coming on. Probably both of us. We'd absolutely love that. You would have my everlasting love if you came on. But if not, no worries. I want to get a few guests on over the summer, and I thought, who better to start asking than the two people who run the funniest pod in the game. Switching on the charm now. Hope you boys are enjoying the Worlds. What a performance from Jinton this morning, by the way. Ciao, Fionn Lynch from Cue the Chat. So go and check out the Cue the Chat podcast. We obviously want to help as many podcasts as possible, and hopefully some of the podcasts out there might help us along, Tom. You never know. Not that we need it, because we're going to smash the world, aren't we, Tom? That's
we are. Well, we're doing very well so far. This World Championship, 100 views a day on YouTube. We've gained subscribers, and we are kind of enjoying it. And we're going to try and do it regularly and see where we are come the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, if you are new around here, thank you very much and welcome along. Hope you enjoy your stay. But for those people that are maybe new and haven't been around since the very first episode, Tom, we've got a very special Cue the Music.
Yes, this is our little flashback series we're doing, or our retro series. I don't know what we're calling it, but we're looking back to podcasts gone by and talking about some of the things that, well, it's crazy to think we first talked about them over 2 years ago. It kind of feels mad, but I'm kind of really proud that we've kept on with this project and we're still doing it so many times. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like every podcast, we try and make it better, and I think that's all we can ever do is every podcast make it better than the last one. And I think we go into every podcast with that attitude. And yeah, I mean, it started out as being some little Crucible Roundup chats, didn't it? Many years ago, and
that would be
3 years ago, I think. Yeah,
the very first one.
Yeah, and it's blossoming. And we've got a big Stuart Bingham in the background, which wouldn't have happened without this podcast. So,
I'm sorry again. Not to you.
Apologise to Rachel at the wedding.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm very sorry. Not to you, to your partner Rachel.
Yeah,
I did before this podcast because Joe's getting married later this year. I did ask whether I'd be able to wear my John Virgo waistcoat, and Joe was like, well, you'll be the only one there wearing it. I was like, well, obviously, I'll be the only one wearing a John Virgo waistcoat. But
other than John Virgo himself, potentially,
Yeah, and Dennis Taylor, maybe?
Who knows? I'm not sure he'd wear a John Virgo waistcoat, to be honest.
Well, he would sing Snooker Loopy, which is, of course, today's Cue the Music. We're going back to Dennis Taylor singing Snooker Loopy, which kind of kicked it all off, really. It's the first one we had of a player singing it for us. It was kind of a theme tune for maybe the first few episodes. Still something I look back on fondly. It's currently got 3,400 views on YouTube, which makes me laugh every time I think about it. That many people have watched this video of Dennis looking a bit confused, but it makes me very happy.
Well, yeah, just give us a bit of background on how this came about, Tom, because obviously now it's a big institution of we get players or anybody to sing Snooker Loopy, and we use that as our intro. And we've had various players from Alexander Ursenbacher, Gary Wilson, Mark King, to Sean Murphy doing it. We've had and viewer submissions. So how did it come about, this very first one?
Well, do you know what? I think when we were launching the podcast, I thought, okay, what we need. I like podcasts when they've got a bit of production to them. Do you know what I mean? When there's maybe a credits music or a theme song, and I was like, well, we can't use the actual Snooker Loopy. And then I looked on this video message website called Memo, and Dennis Taylor was on there, and I just sent him the lyrics. I didn't ask him, can you sing this? All I did was spend the money, about 30 quid or 40 quid, I think it was, put the lyrics in, and just sat back. And in my head, I was like, I don't think he's going to do this. So I was perfectly fine with him not. I was like, it's fine. It's not really 40 quid because he'll read it, probably block me, disappear, and he won't do it.
Which is pretty much what Stephen Hendry's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But Dennis is a bigger man than him, and Dennis is the true king of the Crucible in my eyes, because Dennis came back and he sent us this little video, and it's just him singing the song, and I think I put my name as Snooker Loopy Podcast, which is why he goes, well, I know you're Snooker Loopy in it, because he must have heard that, and yeah, he very kindly did it, and it just still brings me so much joy that we've got someone from the original Matchroom mob, from the original version, singing a solo version of Snooker Loopy, and it especially brings me so much joy because, do you know what I mean, there's not many of them who A, are left, and B, would do it. And I reckon Steve Davis might do it if we manage to find him somehow. I don't know if it would get anyone else doing it.
Yeah. Well, we will see. So we thought we'd revisit it because originally, we'll talk about scores in a minute, but we want to see if were we harsh on Dennis Taylor all those years ago. So take it away, Dennis.
Well, I didn't really know what to do with this request, so I know you're Snooker Loopy nuts, so here we go. Might as well, rather than just talking, I might as well try and sing it. So, Snooker Loopy nuts are we, me and him and them and me. We'll show you what we can do with a load of balls and a snooker cue. Pot the red, then screw back for the yellow, green, brown, blue, pink and black. Snooker Loopy nuts are we. We're all snooker loopy. Bum 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 bum.
Hello and welcome to the Snooker Loopy Podcast. That's usually what comes after that.
Bum.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it's just really special. And I remember you said, I remember it distinctly. You were like, "I've got a very special surprise for you, Joe," and I was like, "Oh my God, what on earth is this?" Because Tom over the years has sent me links to various niche pieces of tat, and also most of them are now in my room somewhere. But I just remember opening that up and seeing a message from Dennis Taylor, and I was just completely and utterly baffled, gobsmacked, flabbergasted. Yeah, it was just amazing. So thank you for that, and also it started something, didn't it? As much as it's a bit silly.
How dare you, Joe? This is a very serious musical piece.
You know, yeah, it's where it all began, I guess, and there's got to be a bit of emotion behind that and a bit of nostalgia. But I don't know if you remember what you gave it back in the day, Tom.
No, I think I gave it a 7.
You did give it a 7, yeah. I gave it a 6.
Oh, I mean, you were very mean.
I was very mean, yeah.
Got 123 likes on YouTube, so that's nice. Almost a 147.
Yeah, I mean that's more than most of my videos on YouTube. So,
well, what I've only just noticed watching it this time is that how he's framed it, and there's a picture of him holding the World Championship trophy in the background, just over his head.
Yeah,
I can't work out what the other side is. Can you make that out? I'm not too sure what those photos are supposed to be.
On the left.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, maybe it's a family picture or something. But
one of them was a wedding photo, and I was just like, "Oh, bless."
Yeah.
This is the best sound in snooker.
I'd like to,
dedicate
this to my wife, Snooker Loopy.
The fact that we've got that, and nobody can ever take that away from us, Tom. So I mean, it's very cool. We still use it as our intro for videos. We have a sort of rotation system now, but
I've realised is that because we're so used to it that we're just like, yeah, that's what we've got as our intro. If you've never listened to the podcast before, and you just click on the random episode, you're going to be like, hold on, why is Stuart Bingham singing? What's going on?
But I think that's the beauty of it. It's so random, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think I was too harsh on it. You know, I gave it a 6, but it was the first one we ever did. I mean, to put it into perspective, I gave My Way by Dominic Dale Winton a 7. A 7. You know, what?
I'm disappointed that Dominic Dale hasn't announced he's going to release that to celebrate his retirement. I genuinely thought he would have.
Well, there's still
announced
time.
an album or something, or a cover of Sam Ryder's Spaceman or something.
Oh my goodness! Oh my god! I dread to think what that would sound like. I'm going to upgrade my score, Tom. Now, I'm going to keep the original Dennis in its position in the league table. This is going to be under episode 59 revisited, but I am going to give it an 8.5 because it is where it started, Tom, and it feels very nostalgic. And if it wasn't for that, who knows where our podcast would be right now.
Well, do you know what, Joe? I'm going to give it an 8.5 because what year did Dennis win the World Championship?
19.8.5.
There we go. It seems very fitting to give him that one. There we are.
Yeah.
It does mean that Steve Davis will have to get 6 different ratings if he ever does it.
Yeah. So that puts him, and I think very fittingly, it puts him in the top 10, just beneath the Snooker Song from Big Break, on an 8.75, that one. And, you know, there's not many above it. But yeah, I think that is a much more representative score. I can see it has gone above Everlasting Love, though. And I wonder whether that's going to be one that we revisit over the next couple of weeks, Tom. You know, I wonder.
Almost certainly, yes. I can't see why. I think Joe's announced his whole feature purely because he wants to listen to that song again.
Yeah, I have my ways, Tom. But yeah, if there's any that you guys... Go on.
If Everlasting Love isn't on the wedding soundtrack, I'll be very upset.
It won't be.
Please. As you walk down the aisle.
As I walk down the aisle, yes. Absolutely.
And got introduced in the wedding, they're going, and the first person getting married, he's from South Shields, Joe, the Juggernaut Hannard. And he walked down the aisle to Everlasting Love as you walk down the aisle.
Yeah, well, you know, it could happen, I suppose. It could happen.
Wedding of the year. So excited.
But yeah, you know, if there's any songs that you guys want us to revisit, you know, if there any ones that, you know, are special to you guys, because there will be some that we forget about and forget the memories of them. So do let us know down in the comments. Equally, cue the laughters if there's any particularly funny ones that you remember that you want us to go back over. Please let us know, because it is your podcast as much as it is ours, and we really do believe that. And yeah, let us know what you think.
Well, also, one of our favourite things last year during the Crucible was when we started to get people sending in their own versions of Snooker Loopy. So if anyone either wants to cover that or a different song, do you know what I mean? I'm still hoping we might get some covers of the Big Break theme tune, or I doubt anyone's ever recorded a cover of 147 It's My Idea of Heaven. But if you want to be the first person to ever do that, we would love to hear that.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, that's what is one of the most fun things that we do, is having the viewer submissions. So keep it coming. Obviously, get in touch with the links down below. Snooker Loopy Podcast at gmail.com is where you can get in touch to be read out on Fanzeng email, and we absolutely read every single one. There's not been any that we've missed over the years yet, so we're going to keep reading them out. Even if we end up with 147 of them, Tom, at a time.
Yeah, the only ones we immediately delete are the ones from former professional snooker players where they say, "Can you stop using that recording?" We just delete it. We go, "Nope, sorry, I'm not even going to." Taylor, I'm not even going to open it. Sorry, mate. I'm just, I'm just busy.
Yeah, I mean, our absolute dream is to have the whole BBC team do it at some point. Hazel Irvin, Ken. We've got Ken. We've got Crafty. We need John Parrott to do it. We need Steve Davis.
We've got roughly 16 seconds of Crafty, I think it is, though.
Yeah, and Hendry. We will get Hendry one day.
What if Jimmy White's finally got on his YouTube channel? Do you know what I mean? It feels like the barriers are breaking, and hopefully.
Yeah. Absolutely. But any final words, Tom, about day 2 of the Crucible?
I just don't think day 3 can live up to this. It's been so exciting. It's been so much fun, and it's been so just the pure drama, the pure sort of drama and excitement. And one thing that was part of the coverage today that was interesting was they had a brief interview with Barry Hearn's son.
Oh, Eddie Hearn, yeah, I've seen that.
With Eddie Hearn, who's now kind of the head of World Snooker. And he said a bit about how, well, firstly, he said, Barry's always wanted it to stay at the Crucible, which I've never really got that impression recently, but fair enough. But then he went on to say that ideally they wanted it to stay at the Crucible, but it is about sort of money, but also they recognise the emotional attachment and the fact that, players would probably rather play at the Crucible even if it's less money. And it was a very it felt like a real handful of steps back from last year, where last year it felt like Barry was going live on TV and basically going, any offers? Whereas this year it felt a bit like they were maybe being a bit more reflective, and I felt less like they were basically trying to sell it. Do you know what I mean? It felt more like they were trying to negotiate it to be a bit better, but hopefully it will stay there based on that interview, I hope.
Well, fingers crossed. I mean, obviously it's there till 2027. We'll at least get 2 more years out of it, at the very least, and we will enjoy it. I know you're planning on going next year, Tom, and I'll definitely be going next year as well. So, we need to keep enjoying it while we can. And if it moves, it moves. And, we will continue to watch, and we will continue to enjoy and make new memories. But for now, it's going nowhere.
Beautiful. Beautifully said, Joe. And hope everyone is enjoying the snooker. Once again, do comment below if there's any, as we said, suggestions or thoughts about cue the music or cue the laughter. Maybe it's a cue the music that you felt we rated it too low or too high. That could be quite interesting to see if you've listened to an episode and gone, I'm really annoyed that they hated Jimmy White's Minted, and you think we were massively wrong, then, I mean, you're wrong, but feel free to get in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. Let us know. Enjoy day 3 at the Crucible, and we will be back tomorrow morning with our next roundup.